Hey, welcome to another typology interview. We have Raja. How's it going, Raja?
Doing great, man. How are you?
Going great. Yeah, really nice to finally meet you. Like I've seen you around a lot, and you're always
Yep,
very active and vocal.
that's
Yeah,
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
right. And you're an admin in the Facebook community, right?
Yep,
With
yep.
Klaus.
Admin
Yeah,
in the Facebook group.
yeah. And you were just telling me you're doing huge changes in your life, and a lot of that is because of OP growth as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So we'll talk
Um,
about yeah.
so it's not that it's OP is such a part of my life, and just the personality community and the self growth community is such a part of my life that it's difficult to say that like OP informed the move. This
Yeah,
move informed my understanding of OP. Like
but
there's
it's
so
just your
many things.
growth, your general growth that sort of, yeah, it's part of your natural. Okay, awesome. Cool.
100%.
So, like, have you been into self growth for a while and personality community and stuff?
Yes, I have been. I would say formally part of the personality community since late 2012, early 2013.
Right.
Um, and incidentally, it was the old Dave Superpowers channel that got me into the typology community.
Really? Were
Yeah,
you? Did you know anything about MBTI before that? No.
loosely. I mean, I had done a little bit of my own research when I
Right.
was in my mid 20s. I discovered ENTJ being a thing.
Okay.
And that was sort of the first stepping stone for me understanding, oh, this is, I now understand, at least on a superficial level, why I am broadly connected to the performing arts community and why they are in many ways my people, but also the ways in which they're not, because there's a lot of, that's a very sensory, feelery,
SF. Yeah.
right? SFNF type of place.
Hmm.
But it's also very extroverted and it's also very goal oriented. So I was like, oh, right, the E and the J line up, the N and the T, not as much.
Right.
And
Okay.
so from there, sort of going deeper and deeper and like the layers of the cognitive functions. And like I had a blog for a while that apparently Dave read during his hiatus
That's really weird.
when he did my
Dave
type.
read something. He reads. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
right. No, right, like I've written for like IDR Labs and Personality Junkie. Like I've written some
Okay.
stuff
Cool.
on
All right.
these sites. It was like,
Right.
oh yeah,
Okay.
I actually have come across you before in your writings, and I was like,
Right.
oh, okay.
Don't ask me to say any specific details, but I've seen your name.
Yep,
I typed it into the Google before
right.
we interviewed you.
Factual, factual.
Right. Okay, so you thought you were an ENTJ at the beginning?
For forever. Um,
Forever.
uh, so as you'll put in the video, so I am a blast, play, consume, missing sleep, INTJ.
INTJ, but you thought you were ENTJ.
Yes,
Okay.
because of that, like, and it's the sort of thing that I was even talking to them about, where it's like, well, if I'm chopping the board in half, because I have that missing sleep, and I feel like the community's understanding of being an IJ or an INTJ is so dependent on that sleep component existing, right?
Right. Right.
Whether or not you're lead sleep or not, okay, whatever, who cares? But like, if you're missing sleep, it's really hard to type you like observationally as an EJ unless you're tracking something really, really specific.
Right. So you're sleep last, and Austin also has sleep last.
Yes.
Do you have the same modalities? Because you also seem quite feminine in
No.
your modalities. No, that's interesting. Okay.
So that's something that actually threw off Dave. So I am masculine sensory at the bottom,
Oh,
right? So I have feminine NI at the top, masculine SE at the bottom, and double activated savior feminine TE. So my blasting and even a lot of my
your blast is
play,
feminine. Yeah. Okay.
my blast is feminine, feminine for days, which is why I will come across as being very feminine and swooshy and loopy like that.
Right.
But then when you actually see me interact in real life, like I punch things, I like weightlifting, and it's very kinesthetic. Like even if you hear me play the guitar,
Right.
you're gonna be like, oh, that's you are masculine sensorying the guitar. You're treating the guitar like a drum, not like, something
Interesting.
else.
And they
Yeah.
caught that. They caught that.
They did not catch that.
Oh,
They thought I was double feminine.
Wow. So then how did you get to that fact, or did they change their mind, or what's going
They
on?
changed their mind. I wrote them back and I was like, look, I agree with everything. I think you are wrong about my, because I said I almost emailed you and I didn't want to tamper with your process, but I almost emailed you and said, whatever I am, I promise I am kinesthetic something. I
Right.
have to learn by doing, I have to physically go through the motions and get the muscle memory and those mechanics right. If you show me something, like I'm not a visual person. I can't visualize or imagine like that. I have to
Okay.
like, here's how to do a deadlift. I'm like, I don't care. Here, let me grab the weight.
Huh.
Oh, right. I got it. And I went back and
Right.
forth with them and I sort of triangulated with Dave and he was like, oh, yes, I can see why we got that. And also like in my
Yeah,
typing
I can
video,
see too for sure. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and also like I was in a little teeny tiny phone booth at like a WeWork. So you couldn't see a lot of my physicality.
Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting. So it's sort of the same thing with Hassan Minhaj or Hassan Minhaj, how you pronounce it, right? So when you
I don't
watch,
think I interviewed him. No, I didn't interview
no,
him.
he's like a famous person.
Oh,
He
okay.
was somebody who was in the objective personality class. They did a whole class on him.
Oh, okay. All
He and
right.
I are type twins.
Oh, cool.
So when you watch him, it's going to be the same thing. You're like, what? There is so much femininity happening. There is a preponderance of feminine energy
Right.
being blasted at me. Well, yeah, because my swooshy AF NI and my super flexible flowy TE, that's what I'm going to be hitting you in the face with all the time. And it isn't until you watch what I like to consume, like when I'm like, if you see me at the gym, like I'm like full cool guy alpha dude at the gym, like lifting heavy, and like the media that I consume is tends to be on the much more masculine, aggressive side.
Hmm.
Um, but it's very much in a demon state.
Yeah. I don't. That is a bit anecdotal, but yeah, I get
Yeah.
that. Like, yeah, all of it together sort of adds up. Yeah. It's interesting. It's really interesting. So your main NI is feminine. Like your main function NI is feminine.
Yes.
Do you know? Do you see your NI work? Or are you blind to it? Because a lot of people.
All day. And it's
Yeah.
actually why I've never like I've called myself an ENTJ, but in reading all of the descriptions, I'm like, I'm an ENTJ with a ridiculously good NI,
Okay.
is how I've always sort of put it. And then at least in objective personality, when they're like, well, we're tracking, balance on observer and decider, right,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Right.
Uh, that's when I'm like, oh, right, INTJ makes sense, but I could never call myself that because I was missing
Right.
something.
Yeah, because like you're so extroverted. Like you're the most extroverted you could be as an INTJ. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think, talking to some other people in the class, one of the things that makes me even more extroverted as a missing sleep INTJ is that masculine sensory at the bottom,
Right.
right? So, again, so the way that they organize it is that like the double feminines are the most introverted and the double masculines are the most extroverted, right? Is sort of
Okay.
how they sort of slot it out. So because I'm on the more extroverted, more punchy side of thing, right? Again, it's a little bit anecdotal, a little bit throwing words at the
Right.
wall, but like I am even that masculine sensory gives me an extroverted punch
Yeah.
because right, and especially like in my communication style, I if you listen to a double feminine or somebody with feminine SE talk, there's not that like rat-a-tat energy to it. There's not like if you listen to like a rapper, right? So like Lin-Manuel Miranda is a really good example of
I
this,
got you. Yeah. Okay. I get what you're trying to say. Okay. Yeah.
right? You see what I'm saying? Do
Yeah.
you, do you and I get me, man?
And I get you, Drew.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you right, so someone like Lin, tons of feminine energy, but if you hear his speech patterns, or even like Eminem's speech patterns,
Right.
right? His feminine NI and his feminine TI that leads sleep happening, you're like, okay, well, your two savior functions are feminine, but when he speaks, there's such an intense percussive nature to the way he does it. You're like that masculine sensory. You can like I can land a point.
Right. Yeah. And you seem like really comfortable too in your blast. That blast is pretty good. Yeah. You feel responsible? Yeah.
When I did my typing video back in the day, the first thing that they said, they're like, all right, so not missing blast.
Yeah.
With whatever else, we can say for absolute certainty that you are not missing blast. And then very quickly got to, all right, let's look for the crutch. No, this, yeah, he's lead blast. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Right. Moving
No,
on.
I feel incredibly responsible for blast. I love blasting.
You actually
Um,
like it. Okay, cool.
oh
Okay.
my God, I love it. If my job were just like giving TED Talks and interviews all day, I would be the happiest dude on the planet.
Interesting.
Like, I
Interesting.
love that stuff. Um,
Yeah, it's really torn up because some people like their first animals, they hate their first animal, and then some
yeah,
people actually like their first animal, and
no,
it's really
I love it.
strange. Yeah.
Now, I will say I've learned to love it even more over time as I've gotten more comfortable with consume and sleep.
Right.
So now I get this high from blasting because I know that I've put in the sleep consume, work so that what I'm blasting is actually processed and meaningful and will land and
Right.
will have an impact and is going to be something that I really want to communicate.
Right. Right.
Which in turn, right? So there's this like really positive loop I found myself in where it's like, let me blast something, play with the tribe and gather with them and like mix it up with them, listen to what they have to say, and then process it and then just start that cycle over. And
Yeah.
that has done wonders for my personal growth because I'm like, I really want to blast all the time. But being responsible for blast means that you have to blast meaningful things,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because I've seen blasters say the same thing over and over again, and I used to do that a lot. Or like the stuff they'll blast is really superficial, and I'm like, have you really thought about the nuances to this? Like, really?
Right.
And they just
Right.
haven't. And so I enjoy now all of the things that go into the blasting.
Right. Okay, so let's dial it back a little bit into your NI.
Yeah,
Can you tell me a little bit about how your NI expresses itself, how you see it? Yeah.
it's so feminine.
Okay.
So feminine. Um, and it's really, really interesting because like yes, I'm in musical theater, and I think part of the reason why I feel comfortable in the musical theater environment is because it's a very feminine environment. Just like not only are there a lot of women, there are a lot of like the LGBTQ community is really prominent in the musical theater and arts community.
Yeah.
I grew up around women, um, and I always really gravitated towards that very flowy, swooshy energy. I've always felt very nurtured by it.
Right.
Uh, and for a really long time, I'm going to say up until my early 30s, so like until very, very, very recently, I was really uncomfortable with my masculine side. I didn't know how to express it. I didn't know how to be the straight male that I knew that I was. And my NI was trying desperately to be like, all right, can we look at this human entity in some other way that NI makes sense? And it's like, okay, well, is he gay? Like, does he like dudes? Sure, just don't. Okay, fair enough. All right, well, maybe this dude is trans. No, I just feel very male with a lot of that lead feminine NI is, the phrase that I use with my friends is pathologically accommodating.
Okay. That's more like your TE, right? That's accommodating?
In some ways. So there's
Okay.
accommodating to the tribe, that's the TE, right? But the NI, at least for me, also feels really accommodating, where it's like there's this idea that pops into my head, or somebody will throw out an idea, or like something will get organized, and my NI is like, sure, man, that can be part of this big conceptual framework. We just got to make it work, right?
Right.
And so it's always trying. The way that Dave put it was like, you have your brain is a box. You're still organize over gather, but your box is so big and abstract and the walls are so swooshy and permeable that it feels really chaotic.
Okay. So that's the feminine. So there's like chaos in your order, which comes from the feminine, I guess. Okay.
Yes, it comes from right. And there's I'm sort of the most chaotic of all of the lead organizers, right? So
Right.
like he talks about there being a spectrum and there's like a gradient in the middle, and I'm like right there in the middle, where it's like, yes, you're controlling kind of in some ways, but then, so like here's an analogy of like we're putting together a plan, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I wanted to get to. Yeah, the
Yeah,
plan.
sort of like, so let's say we're putting together a plan to like go on a vacation.
Okay.
Um,
Or move to LA.
Move to LA, sure, right? So it's like we're putting together this plan, and I the thing that I've seen in my masculine NI friends is they're very much about what is the quickest route from A to B,
Oh,
right? It's very like freight train, right? So there's that
right.
image that was in the class of like
Of
it
the
is
maze and then
right.
blasting
It's
through
like
the maze. Yeah.
right, you're blasting through the maze. It's like the water is going to flow in one line. This is where the dam is, and it just goes straight through the mountains, right?
Right. For me, that
My
I see that as masculine SE. Like you see the world as you could just destroy the world to get to your goal. But yeah.
It could be. It certainly
Okay.
could be. The way that I experience that is like my feminine NI wants the path of least resistance,
Okay.
right? And it doesn't want to zigzag, right? It's not bouncing from thing to thing. It's more like if you were to think of like a mountain, it's all right, well, let me take this big arcing pathway around the mountain that'll like slingshot around it. I'm still on one path. There's not a lot of choppy waters. Because like my SE, yes, can bulldoze through it, but my NI, it wants to go around it.
See, I always thought that like a feminine NI would really be more like looseness with the plan and movable on the plan.
Totally. Yes,
Yeah.
they're totally, totally. So feminine NI wants a plan. If you don't have a plan, feminine NI gets super sad, right?
Okay.
If it's just we're just gonna do whatever, what, whatever. No, we need something. Um, and so the best plan is the plan that can account for the unpredictable sensory chaos, right? The
Right.
unpredictable
Yeah,
sensory
yeah.
chaos, right? Where it's like we're going about our plan, we're loose, we're flexible, we're doing the thing, we're like moving towards the goal. Cool, great. Oh wow, there's an enormous boulder in our way. NI wants a plan that's like, that's cool. We can like we don't really care about the boulder. We don't have to blast through the boulder because that boulder is not moving, but our plan is flexible enough. All right, we'll just go around the boulder and then keep going.
Hmm. So if,
Right?
if you have a plan and something goes wrong, you don't get frustrated. You can just sort of no.
Yeah, I mean it's fine. Now, part of why I, Raja Burrows, do not get frustrated is
Right.
because I have that double activated SE at the bottom. So
Right.
I have this extra tool in my arsenal that's like,
Uh,
well, that boulder's really large. Going around it's annoying, but it's not so large that I can't masculine SE smash through it.
right. What
Right?
happens if like something's broken or like your door is not unlocking or your
Mhm.
mouse stops working? Like
Gotcha.
you should have that FI rage and
Yes.
you
Yes.
should have that chaos rage like cuz
Yes.
double like
Yes.
your demons are masculine.
Yes, they absolutely are. And I get momentarily very frustrated. So like, let's say I lock myself out, right? That's a
Right.
thing that can happen, right? Lock myself out. Well, I never go anywhere without my phone. We're fine. Just text the super. It's all
So
good.
you're chill with the chaos.
Like, I don't love chaos, but I get over it quickly in the same way that an EJ might.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah, I would like, and again, let me be absolutely clear. I do not like chaos.
Right.
It's annoying, it's frustrating, But like,
you plan to avoid it, but if you
yeah, you
can't
plan
avoid
to
it,
avoid it, right? So like, I was,
right.
I posted in the Facebook group, getting to the airport from where I was yesterday to get from Glendale, California to LAX in the morning is just a nightmare. Like, it just sucks,
And you know
right?
that already from beforehand.
I knew that from beforehand
Right.
because I know how Google Maps works.
Right.
And I like plugged it in the day before and I was like, all right, so I'm leaving, like my flight takes off at here, and so I like worked backwards, and like we'll get to this in a second, but like for me, time is not linear. I just don't experience time in a linear way.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a second. So my plan was like, all right, well, I gotta figure out sort of like backtracking to when I need to leave. If I leave at 7, I'm gonna get there too early, but if I leave at 7:30, then I'm gonna get there too late. All right, I guess I'll just leave at 7. And then traffic was worse than I expected. Whatever,
Uh,
it's cool.
you left enough time.
Like, it's fine. And if we didn't leave enough time, like if I got super duper blown out, yeah, I'm mad about it, but schmur, I'm not gonna, like, what am I gonna do? Break, like, what am I gonna do? Nothing you can do. You just gotta sit in the traffic because you screwed up.
Right.
Whatever.
Were you always like this, or did this take work to get here?
Work.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
When
lots of
they
work.
typed you, were you like this as well, or
I was pretty close to this.
wow? How do you type someone like that? All right. Anyway.
That's a fantastic question.
Right.
Uh, the way that they did it was they're like, okay, we're hearing just a ton of tribe validation. Like, we got the blast piece, so we know that he has savior DE and savior OI.
Yeah.
And because the things, so it's the analogy of like, is somebody an observer or decider? This wasn't fixed yet, but this came out in their latest video, and I was like, oh, that's so good. It's for deciders, right? The EJs and the IPs, the people are the story,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
right? And for the IJs and the EPs, the people are in the story.
Yeah.
For me, 100% of the time, the people are in the story. The
Yeah.
story, the structure, the plan, that trumps everything.
Yeah. That's weird for me because I'm an IP, and I also feel like people are in the story, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, but that might be a potential anecdote, but
Yeah. But and then also because like okay, so you're so balanced on control chaos, and you're also balanced on self tribe. So like it could have been self tribe,
it
you
could have
know?
been. Right. So I think that the way that they landed at it, that I agree with, and again, he afterwards were like, we just need to like talk about this because you are such a weird edge case in so many ways.
Right.
Um, I think that being in the performing arts community has forced my demons in a way that just I had to become more balanced with them at a much
Right.
younger age. Like, and also honestly as a POC, right? As a
It's
person of
also
color
yeah,
in
and
the
it's
arts,
also double activated. But yeah, person of color, okay.
yeah, like as a person of color in the arts community, in a community that, and especially look, as I said before, I can't be in ENTJ mode, right? I can't NT my way through problems as an artist, right? And particularly in this arts community,
Right.
like it's like if you don't play the SF and NF game, you're not going to get what you want. Like, you will not succeed objectively.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I guess I have to learn
To
how
simulate it at least. Yeah.
to simulate it. And then
Yeah.
my life didn't really start to fall apart until that when I was like, I don't really care about musical theater anymore. But I've spent since I was 15 years old was when I decided I want to be a professional musical theater Broadway actor.
Right.
Okay, well, now that NF piece is gone, it's like, where did my rudder go? But like before that, and look, I'm not going to say that I was perfectly balanced. I was a hot mess alcoholic in my 20s. Like,
Oh really? Okay.
I was still majorly a hot mess. But my freak out, like, I didn't have these kinds of tidal waves as much as somebody like Dave and Shannon did. Like,
Right.
certainly not to the extent of Dave.
Right.
right? Like you can tell his double
Oh
act.
man, I just saw that machete video he did where he's like, "Oh, I got a machete by my bed and I leave my door unlocked because I want someone to break in." It's like, what?
Ah,
Yeah,
guys,
he's done work on himself.
right? And I think that just my circumstances, my experiences, I've always been in really nurturing growth mindset environments my
Right,
entire life.
right, right.
That it's like, yeah, go ahead.
Another thing I'm really curious about is your FI because I guess in acting you have to get really in touch with your FI. You need to
Yeah.
like show emotion and it's
Mhm.
masculine. Yeah,
Yes.
like has that helped you like get in touch with your FI, the acting, or just pretend like you are?
Active. So my approach to acting is probably not the correct approach.
Well,
Um,
if it
so
TE works, then it's correct.
yeah, right. So one of the things that I have sort of learned about myself and sort of my approach to the craft is I I don't know how to be somebody other than exactly who I am.
Oh, okay.
Right? So like I don't care about transformational performance. Like I don't like yes, I recognize how enormously skilled the late Philip Seymour Hoffman was.
Okay.
I ITE get that dude was unbelievable. You know, somebody like Mark Rylance, somebody like
But
I'm
they
trying to
might have savior identity, like, you
they
know?
may I don't
Yeah.
know, but like those the kinds of actors who give, you know, amazingly transformative mind like I didn't even recognize him. Like,
Right.
cool, I get it. I don't really care. I want to watch a Denzel all day. I
Huh.
want to watch Denzel Washington be Denzel Washington all day, every day.
I see.
Like, yeah,
So
because
okay, but even though you're you, okay, even though you're
yes,
trying to be you, you do have like different aspects of yourself, like that
totally.
FI that you need to get in touch with if you want to give a good performance, no?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I would say that it's more about like I'm not trying to. There's no element of pretend for me. Like
Uh,
I don't find enjoyment. Here's a good example. So in musical theater, the way that shows tend to be built, right, is there's the 4 or 5 leads or people on principal contracts, if you want to get ST about it. And then there's usually an ensemble of anywhere from 6 to 12. And the ensemblists play 7 different characters throughout the course of the show, right? They have little featured bits. They have, oh, in this scene, I'm this person, and in this scene, I'm that person. I hate that. That's the worst. And it got to the point where I'm like, I will not accept any contract where I have to be more than one character
that's so weird.
in a
Okay,
given.
that's so weird because like you always see those double deciders that are able to like switch back and forth between characters. No,
Not me. Not
not
me.
you.
Not me.
And then the other thing I picked up on was that you want to be authentic, like you want to be your authentic self, which is also a very EJIP thing. So like, what's
Yes,
going on here?
I am when they say glass lizard,
Right.
this guy right here, if you talk to me and you're not,
Sure, you're not an EJ.
here's why I'm sure I'm not an EJ, is because my my whole mission in life is so conceptual and it's all about structure. It's never about the people. The people are at
Okay.
least right. Here's a good example.
But
If you
but EJ is also about self. Is it about
right,
self?
right, right. Here's a better example.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry, I'm giving a bit of a hard time, but like this
no,
is interesting.
dude,
Yeah.
bring it on. It's all good.
Okay.
Um, so check it out. So my dating life, not so good. Not so good. Um, I have been single for basically my entire life.
Okay.
Just, and it's the sort of thing where it's like, okay, dude, after a decade, the common thread is you. It like
Right.
you got to get real with yourself. And I'm like, Okay, fine. Fair enough. Touche. You got me. And sort of looking at my patterns of behavior, I have always, oh God, this is going to sound really terrible, but it's absolutely true, and I'm working on it. I have always been really acutely aware of the role of being in a couple, like how that fits into society as a whole. And I felt like the role of me as a boyfriend, right, was like, oh, it's my job is to do the boyfriend thing, to be the boyfriend trope to somebody else so that we can exist as a couple in society,
Wow. Okay.
right? Okay, well, that's really problematic because it makes it really hard to connect with individuals if all you're thinking about is how they fit into your perception of how society works,
Right.
right? It's not endearing, and it certainly isn't intimate or vulnerable or anything like that. And it was for so long, I was obsessed with not how other people would perceive me, right? But acutely aware of like, saying this person is my girlfriend has societal ramifications. Like I am aligning myself to this abstract relationship, and like, okay, if we're gonna go see if I want to go see a show, we are seeing a show, right? We're doing a thing as a couple, right? Not Raja and Jessica, right? It's Jessica is doing a thing.
It doesn't have to be like that, though.
I'm aware of this,
Right. So it's just
right?
what you were thinking at the time. Okay, I got you. All right.
Right? And once I sort of realized how legitimately sociopathic that can come across,
Right.
I was like, oh, you might want to work on that, sir.
Yeah. Well, and also the other thing is like relationships, you need a little bit of practice before, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
you don't need it. But yeah, like it's good to practice a little bit, I guess, before you find
Yes.
your real
Yep.
final
Yeah. Yeah.
destination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, if you want to go back to like, why am I an IJ and not an EJ? It's okay. How does the like if I'm when used to be when I was thinking about like who am I going to date? It's how does this human fit into plan?
Okay. All right.
Not good. Don't do that. That's not how you treat people.
Yeah, it's
It's really bad. It's really bad. But it
right.
wasn't until like I had to learn that lesson over and over and over again over the course of like 15 years of being like super duper single and super duper celibate to be like, okay, well I've looked at this from every angle except for the angle in which I'm a monster. Huh.
Okay.
All right, fair enough. Maybe we should explore that one. And then
Uh,
once I started to uncover that, I was like,
right.
oh, okay, well, this is a fixable problem.
Right. So
And so
anyway,
now,
yeah, throughout the entire story, I'm seeing the double deciders going. Like you can't
yep,
ignore them. You're doing it. You're doing it just quite beautifully, and it's quite impressive for an IP to see that thing going on. So good
yep.
job. I see the IJ, but yeah, keep going. Sorry.
No, but that's the thing. To bring it back to your original point, when you're like, are you sure you're not an EJ? But then you listen to me for another 5 or 10 minutes, and you're like,
Right.
no,
Double
an
decider.
EJ just isn't. Like I think of myself as like, my tidal waves instead of being 90-10 are like 70-30, and in the middle it's 60-40, right? So I'm not getting those big, right? Because remember how
Okay.
earlier you were saying like, are you sure you're not an EJ? You're pretty balanced with control and chaos. It's still 70-30.
Right. Okay.
So like it's more balanced than maybe other IJs, but I'm certainly not as balanced as an actual IP or EJ.
Okay, one last question before we go because we're running out of time.
Yeah, man.
Your sensory is your sensory distracting to you, or
That's a really good question. Um, it it sort of goes up and down. I have learned over the years to not ignore it. That I would say that before it was distracting and it was like, no, go away, let me focus on the thing. And now I've sort of learned that, like, all right, well, you have to acknowledge some amount of sensory chaos just as a gut check to make sure you're not ignoring anything big. So the way that I'll do it is I'm like, there's a lot of sensory chaos. I care about this one thing. Everything else go away. You all focus on for as long as I need to.
Right.
And now we'll go back to the thing.
But like bright colors or a mess in your environment or things like that,
I mean,
it doesn't distract you from your NI?
I mean, I certainly feel like I have sensory sensitivity. I don't love a lot of bright lights and big sounds.
Okay.
I don't love it. But I don't know that I can necessarily attribute that to anything within the realm of objective personality, only because I just don't know the science behind it.
Right.
I know people who are my exact modalities who are like, I love the flashy colors.
Oh,
and,
okay.
So I can't, again, I don't have the data.
Interesting. Yeah, no, the reason I was interested is because I had a double interview with Otim and Austin,
Sure.
who are both lead NIs like you, and they both agreed that the sensory was very distracting for them. And then I had another interview with an FISE and an SETE.
Sure.
And they both said sensory was distracting for us. So I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, as I said, I don't love sensory chaos, but I certainly do try to limit it on the most extreme ends. But I've learned that it's important and it helps make me alive. And so I know that I need to bring it in doses.
Right. I'm also really impressed by what you said. I don't have enough data on that, which is like so demon use. Yeah. Good job. Yeah.
Doing the things,
Cool, man.
Doing the things.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Raja. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Of course, man.
Yeah. Do you have something you want to promote or some final message?
I'll tell you what, check out my Instagram. As I'm making these moves and getting more into
right. Send me the link. I'll put it down below.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. It's at the Jolly Raja. So check it out.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.